How we going, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin. It's been a while. What can I say? It's been a week that was just jam packed, and I haven't had a chance to watch, read, record anything. But things have settled down now, so we are carrying on with Samurai Season, and today we are talking about the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. I'm getting better at my pronunciations. So before we go into that, let's have a quick recap. Who is Miyamoto Musashi? Well, we spoke about him on the Samurai trilogy. Oh, and he is historically one of the greatest samurai warriors in history. He is the basis of films, and it's not just that trilogy. There's the more I dig, the more I find, and yeah, this I'm gonna have to cut this off at some point this Samurai Season, otherwise it's gonna go on forever. Maybe I'll do another one next year or something like that if you're up for it. But he's the subject of the manga Vagabond. I'm currently on volume 6, so I'm chipping away at those slowly. And this is the book that he wrote. So this is the book that he left behind for his students. In his later life, he retired and apparently retired to a cave. And he left these 5 scrolls behind for his students, which was just jam packed with advice. And yeah, it's the philosophy that he lived by. And I think, along with the Hagakure, which we previously reviewed, it's obviously this is for samurai warriors, but it can be applied in life, in other principles and other ways of life, to a point. Um, and yeah, this is a stunning edition of it as well. I mean, it's not a very long book. I mean, you can. There's audio books of this that aren't even 2 hours long, but it's very distilled. These are passages that are to be reflected on, and not reflected, like sort of, yeah, reflected on. And one thing he puts across is that this is all well and good with theory, but this needs to be practiced. So he will end a passage with, now go away and practice it, then come back. So it's kind of like an instruction manual. This is a stunning edition as well. I can't recommend this enough. This is there's a quote from him as well here. When you attain the way of strategy, you will not be one thing you cannot there will not be one thing you cannot see. And so this is translated by Victor Harris, and basically on every page there is a stunning piece of artwork. Look at that. So this was just a pleasure to read, and you just fly through it. And this isn't a book that you read once. This is something that you read again and again. I would say this isn't quite as poetic as the Hagakure, and I think both of these texts, they weren't written thinking, they weren't written in mind that they were going to be published and bought and read and translated by Westerners hundreds of years into the future. So you have to, apply that when reading them. So I think this is a bit more straightforward than the Hagakure, but it's very practical and straightforward, and not quite as poetic. But there's a lot of philosophy in there. I'm just flicking through here. I did this one. I'm not going to do as many readings as I did on the Hagakure as well, but because it doesn't really warrant that sort of review. But one thing that I did. So let's start again. I'm tripping over myself. So he leaves behind 5 scrolls, and these are those 5 scrolls. So that's the 5 rings, and each is a section of his training. So you've got 5 books essentially. So you've got the ground book, the water book, the fire book, the wind book, and the book of the void. And there's bits here where he talks about other schools and debunks them and sort of gives them reviews and scathing reviews and whatnot. And I'm just flicking through some artwork here. This is amazing. I love this sort of stuff. and obviously with the everything tattoo wise I've got is Japanese, so the Japanese art style of especially like with tattooing and well it's all taken from these artworks anyway, they just apply it. But so you've got the 5 books laid out and it's basically different ways of applying. And yeah, one of the words that's constantly repeated in here is strategy. You have to get your strategy down. And there's 9 principles as well, which again, you can apply this no matter who you are to whatever you do. Do not think dishonestly. The way is in training. Become acquainted with every art. Know the ways of all professions. Distinguish between gain and loss in worldly matters. Develop intuitive judgment and understanding of everything. Perceive those things which cannot be seen. Pay attention even to trifles. And do nothing which is of no use, which I think is something we're all guilty of in this day and age. What's a few bits I did put some post-it notes in I wanted to read out to you. And I think there's 1 or 2. Maybe it's just yeah, so this is from the book. The guy looks like Shinobi there. Right. That better? Yeah. This is from the Fire book. To Renew. I can't remember if I wanted to read the Renew or I could read both. They're both short enough. So, to renew applies when we are fighting with the enemy and an entangled spirit arises where there is no possible resolution. We must abandon our efforts, think of the situation in a fresh spirit, and then win in a new rhythm. To renew, we are deadlocked with the enemy, means that without changing our circumstance, we change our spirit and win through different technique. It is necessary to consider. To renew also applies in large-scale strategy. Research this diligently. Where's another one? Penetrating depths. Once we across. This might be a good one. Penetrating the depths means penetrating with the long sword, penetrating with body, and penetrating with spirit. This cannot be understood in a generalization. Once we have crushed the enemy in the depths, there is no need to remain spirited. But otherwise, we must remain spirited. If the enemy remains spirited, it is difficult to crush him. You must train in penetrating the depths of large-scale strategy and also single combat. And I'll read this. Rat's head, ox's neck. Rat's head, ox's neck means that when we are fighting with the enemy, both he and we become occupied with small points in an entangled spirit. We must always think of the way of strategy as being both a rat's head and an ox's neck. Whenever we have become preoccupied with small details, we must suddenly change to large spirit, interchanging large with small. This is one of the essences of strategy. It is necessary that the warrior think in this spirit in everyday life. You must not depart from this spirit in large-scale strategy, nor in single combat. The commander knows his troops. When you think of this way, you can move him at will and he will be able to chase around. You must become the general and the enemy becomes your troops. You must master this. It's always like that always ends with you must train well. You must master this. This you must study. It's all like like I say, it is just a book of. It's like an exercise book in a way. But yeah, very cool. A great addition to what we're doing here. I wanted to read this first to get into the guy's sort of mind because obviously I'm seeing his life story in the films and with Vagabond as well. They're very faithful and obviously a bit of sugar and spice is being added to the proceedings, but that's the given. So I thought it'd be good to read this first before diving into the epic Musashi, the biography, and this is going to be this is going to be a mountain to climb. So I'm going to be plugging away at this, or chipping away at this, really, this and this in the background for the next couple of weeks, and during that time I'm just going to be concentrating on doing movie reviews. We've got the Hagakure film I want to do next, Sword of Doom. I've got a special guest. We're going to be talking about that. And I'm watching the Zatoichi films as well. There's about 8 in total, and I'm basically just going to do one review covering those 8 films. So bit by bit, I'm going to be doing bits in the background, and then we're going to be carrying on with Samurai Season. And as well as the usual music reviews, Maiden Cast, Pantera Cast, and so on and so forth. So, yeah. Thanks for sticking around. I've had a week or so off, but we are getting back to business in the next week. So, yeah, more content coming. See you soon. Thanks a lot.